Yes.
Hello all. Welcome to our session. ഇന്ന് നമ്മുടെ ഒപ്പം ഉള്ളത് ഡോക്ടർ നികിത ഹരിയാണ്. ഡോക്ടർ നികിത എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് മേഖലയിൽ നിന്നുള്ള ആളാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇലക്ട്രിക്കൽ എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗിൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഓഫ് കേംബ്രിഡ്ജിൽ നിന്നും ഡോക്ടറേറ്റും യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഓഫ് ഓക്സ്ഫോർഡിൽ നിന്നും പോസ്റ്റ് ഡോക്ടറൽ ഫെലോയുമായിരുന്നു. നിലവിൽ ഡൈസൺ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ഓഫ് ടെക്നോളജി എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് ആൻഡ് ടെക്നോളജിയിൽ അധ്യാപികയാണ്. കൂടാതെ ഷീസ് എ ഗ്ലോബൽ അംബാസിഡർ ഫോർ ദി ക്യൂൻ എലിസബത്ത് പ്രൈസ് ഫോർ എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ്. ടെഡെക്സ് സ്പീക്കർ ആണ്. മെന്ററിങ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെയും സ്റ്റെം ഫീൽഡിലേക്ക് വരാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന ആളുകളെയും. സോ അതുപോലെ തന്നെ എഡ്ടെക് സ്റ്റാർട്ടപ്പുകളുടെ പല സ്റ്റാർട്ടപ്പുകളുടെയും കോ ഫൗണ്ടർ കൂടിയാണ് ഡോക്ടർ നികിത. സോ താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച് ഫോർ ജോയിനിങ് us. വെൽക്കം ടു ദ സെഷൻ ഡോക്ടർ നികിത. കൂടാതെ ഇന്ന് ഇവിടെ എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാവരും നമ്മൾ സൂം കൂടാതെ ലൈവ് സ്ട്രീം ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് FB-ല് മെന്റേഴ്സിന്റെ പേജില്. അപ്പോ ധാരാളം ആളുകൾ നമുക്ക് സാധാരണയായി വരുന്നതിൽ കൂടുതൽ രജിസ്ട്രേഷൻ ഈ ഒരു സെഷന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. നിയർലി 2000 രജിസ്ട്രേഷൻസ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പൊ അത് ഈ ഒരു ടോപ്പിക്കിന്റെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസും കൂടി അതിന് കാരണമാണെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്കുള്ള ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ FB ലൈവിലുള്ളവർ അതിൽ കമന്റ് ആയിട്ട് പോസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുക. ഇവിടെയും സൂമിൽ അറ്റൻഡ് ചെയ്യുന്ന പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസും ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ നിങ്ങളുടെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് അതിൽ കൊടുക്കുക. ദയവായി വീഡിയോയും ഓഡിയോ മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യുക, വീഡിയോയും ഓഫ് ചെയ്യുക. സോ താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച് ഫോർ ജോയിനിങ് us today. And Dr. Nikita, over to you.
Thank you very much, Neeraja, for the very kind introduction. A very good evening to all of you. I'm delighted to be joining you all virtually. And before I start, I would like to congratulate Neeraja, Murali, Arun, Shruti, and the whole team behind Mentors for You for such a wonderful initiative. I think it is very imperative that youngsters and others as well get the much required and needed exposure to conversations such as what we'll be having today. So with that, let me try and share my screen. So I hope you all can see my screen. So Neeraja has already talked a bit about me, but in very simple words, I like to describe myself, my job as being, I aspire to inspire youngsters to engineer a better world. നാളെയുടെ എഞ്ചിനീയർമാരെ വാർത്തെടുക്കാൻ എന്റർപ്രൈസിന്റെയും നൂതന ആശയങ്ങളുടെയും ഒരു സമഗ്രമായ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ ഉൾക്കൊള്ളുന്ന എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് പഠന പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ വികസിപ്പിക്കുക, പരീക്ഷിക്കുക, അതൊക്കെയാണ് ഞാൻ ഒരു ഡേ ടു ഡേ ബേസിസിൽ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. So I understand this is a wide spectrum of audience, from students to parents across age ranges with very diverse interests, ambitions and goals. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഇതൊരു പ്യൂർലി പ്രിസ്ക്രിപ്റ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഇൻസ്ട്രക്ഷൻ ബേസ്ഡ് കരിയർ ടോക്ക് ആക്കാൻ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടാണ്. So what I'll do is I'll try and give you a generic overview of how Oxbridge landscape works with a focus on engineering. And hopefully you'll be able to get some takeaway points to ponder for your future, of that of your kids or your friends, and so on and so forth. So എൻ്റെ യാത്രയിലൂടെ എൻ്റെ ഒരു അനുഭവം പങ്കിടാനാണ് ഞാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു വിദ്യാർത്ഥിയിൽ നിന്നും എഞ്ചിനീയറിലേക്കും, ഒരു ഗവേഷക, അധ്യാപിക, ഉപദേഷ്ടാവ്, പ്രഭാഷക, സംരംഭക എന്നിങ്ങനെയുള്ള വിവിധ തലങ്ങളിൽ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മേഖലകളിലേക്കുള്ള എൻ്റെ ഒരു എവല്യൂഷൻ, അത് നിങ്ങളുമായിട്ട് ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാനാണ് ഞാൻ ഈ ഒരു ടോക്ക് കൊണ്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. സോ അത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് നിങ്ങളുടെ കരിയറിലും പഠനത്തിലും ഒക്കെ ഉപയോഗപ്രദമാകും എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. So I'll conduct the session by walking you through my natural progression. I have not had a very traditional journey, so it's a very interdisciplinary, intersectional journey, I would say. So with my experience as context, we'll move on to explore the process of Oxbridge admissions with a focus on PhD, PDF, and so on. So ആ ഒരു റിസർച്ച് സ്പേസ് നമ്മൾ ഡീകോഡ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരു ഓക്സ്ബ്രിഡ്ജ് ലാൻഡ്സ്കേപ്പ് ഓഫ് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കി തരാൻ കൂടുതൽ സഹായകമാവും. And I think that is what my journey as an example will offer you. So with that, we'll define the engineering that is around us and what 21st century engineers are meant to be. So with that, we'll also kind of close with the vision for 21st century engineers and I'll wrap up with some key takeaway points, opening up to discussions. So that's the grand plan for today. Now, to talk about the road to Cambridge, Ellingla Oxbridge, I have to start from my school days, rewinding, going back to almost 20 years ago. I, as any engineer would say, I loved science, but what I would like to specify here is that I'm also someone who loved social studies. CBSE social science CBSE citation holder ഒക്കെ ആയിരുന്നു. പക്ഷെ ആ സമയത്ത് സയൻസും സോഷ്യൽ സ്റ്റഡീസും ഒരുപോലെ ഇഷ്ടമുള്ള ഒരാൾക്ക് ആ ഒരു ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ഇൻ ഹ്യൂമാനിറ്റീസ്, ഹിസ്റ്ററി ആൻഡ് സൊസൈറ്റിയിലൊക്കെയുള്ള ഒരു താല്പര്യം എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം എന്ന വലിയ ഒരു ധാരണയൊന്നും ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു. And at those times, nobody talked about those kind of things, right? So I think it was the influence of growing up in an electrical manufacturing business household, and actually electrical goods manufacturing, a small scale industrial unit. So naturally, I decided with my love for physics and maths, I wanted to be an engineer. And I've always fiddled around making things and all that. So engineering ഒരു obvious choice ആയിട്ടാണ് എനിക്ക് വന്നത്. പക്ഷെ എനിക്ക് ഈ സമയത്ത് പോയിന്റ് ഔട്ട് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ആരും നിർബന്ധിച്ചിട്ടോ ആ സമയത്ത് ടോപ്പ് മാർക്സ്, ഐ വാസ് ഓൾവേസ് ആക്കഡമിക്കലി ഇൻക്ലൈൻഡ്, ടോപ്പ് മാർക്സ് ഒക്കെ കിട്ടുന്നവരെ തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കുന്നത് മെഡിസിൻ ആണ് അല്ലെ, ഫോർ ദ പ്രസ്റ്റീജ് ഓഫ് ഇറ്റ് ആൻഡ് സോ ഓൺ ആൻഡ് സോ ഫോർത്ത്. നമ്മളെ ഒരു പരമ്പരാഗത കരിയർ ചോയ്സസ് ഒക്കെ വളരെ ഡിഫറെന്റ് വേരിയബിൾസിനെയാണ് ഡിപ്പെൻഡ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്, അറ്റ്ലീസ്റ്റ് ആ ഒരു സമയത്ത്. So my first and foremost point here is to the students especially, understand yourself. നിങ്ങളുടെ അഭിരുചി എന്താണെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കുക. എന്നിട്ട് പഠിക്കാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന കോഴ്സിനെ പറ്റി അതിന്റെ സാധ്യതകളെ പറ്റിയും വിശകലനം ചെയ്യുക. അതിനുശേഷം മാത്രം തീരുമാനങ്ങൾ എടുക്കുക. Do not do something just because you saw Nikita now giving a talk and you wanted to do it. Do it if you think you have an aptitude, you have an interest, you have some skill sets that will help you with what you're choosing to do. So apart from the fact that I wanted to be an engineer, teaching has always appealed to me from a very young age. So my play always used to be with my dolls and teddies, and I tried to teach them. Teacher class le cheynadokka replicate cheya, simulate cheya, adine engane better cheya ennokke ulla oru experimental play aayirunnu njan aa samayathu nadatikondirikkunnathu. പക്ഷേ അതൊരിക്കലും I never wanted to teach formally. ഒരു ടീച്ചർ ആവണമെന്ന് ആ ഒരു സമയത്തൊന്നും കുട്ടിക്കാലത്തൊന്നും ഒരിക്കലും കരുതിയിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആഗ്രഹിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. So I was always teaching informally to my peers and so on, and like I said, never wanted to pursue it as a career. So CUSAT-ന്റെ കീഴിലുള്ള CITV Corporate Institute of Technology-യിൽ നിന്നും Electronics and Instrumentation-ലാണ് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ bachelor's in engineering ചെയ്തത്. Like I said, I was always academically very inclined, rank holder okay aayirunnu, like most people then. I wanted to go for CAT exams, like MBA cheyanam ennokke aayirunnu. I started my industry career first, but then I found out that I did not really have an aptitude for it aa samayathu, and so I decided to get back to academia to pursue my masters. And എനിക്ക് പവർ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇലക്ട്രിക്കൽ ആൻഡ് ഇലക്ട്രോണിക്സ് നമ്മൾ പഠിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് എനിക്ക് എപ്പോഴും ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് സബ്ജക്റ്റിനോടായിരുന്നു താല്പര്യം. So I decided I wanted to do a master's in that, and it was during my second year of master's, while I was doing my project work, that I figured I had an aptitude for research. So കേരളത്തിലെ ഒരു ടൗണിൽ നിന്നും ചെന്നൈ SRM യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിലേക്ക് ഞാൻ മാസ്റ്റേഴ്സിന് ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തു. സോ എന്റെ ലോകം കുറച്ചുകൂടെ വലുതായി, എക്സ്പോഷർ കൂടി. ആ സമയത്താണ് IIT പ്രൊഫസേഴ്സ് ഒക്കെ ആയിട്ടുള്ള എൻഗേജ്മെന്റ്സും അതൊക്കെ തുടങ്ങുന്നത്. സോ എന്റെ ആ സമയത്തുള്ള മൈ ഡ്രീംസ് വെർ a little bit more limited അല്ലെ. നമുക്ക് എപ്പോഴും നമ്മളെ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നത് അതൊക്കെ അനുസരിച്ചായിരിക്കും നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു ഡ്രീംസ്. സോ ആൻഡ് വാട്ട് വി തിങ്ക് ക്യാൻ ബി അച്ചീവ്ഡ്. സോ I decided I wanted to do my PhD at an IIT. So after graduating with rank in masters and all that, I joined as a lecturer at National Institute of Technology, Kozhikode, while parallelly preparing for my IIT PhD admissions. So finally, I got into IIT Delhi. ആ സമയത്ത് ഇലക്ട്രിക്കലില് ഏറ്റവും നല്ല റീസെർച്ച് നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എനിക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ താല്പര്യമുള്ള റിസർച്ച് പവർ ഇലക്ട്രോണിക്സിൽ നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് ഡൽഹിയിലായിരുന്നു. ഡൽഹിയിൽ ഫോർമലി ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് മുന്നേ ഞാൻ വർക്ക് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് അവിടെ റിസർച്ച് അസോസിയേറ്റ് ആയിട്ട് പോകാനും തുടങ്ങി. ആ സമയത്ത് അവിടെയുള്ള ഒരു ചേച്ചിയും അവിടുത്തെ ഫാക്കൽറ്റി എൻ്റെ CV ഒക്കെ നോക്കി എൻ്റെ പാഷൻ ഒക്കെ കണ്ടിട്ട് അവര് എൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞു, വൈ ഡോണ്ട് യു അപ്ലൈ അബ്രോഡ് നിക്കിത. സോ ആ സമയത്ത് ആദ്യമായിട്ടാണ് മൈ CV വാസ് വർത്ത് സംതിങ് എന്ന് എനിക്ക് തന്നെ മനസ്സിലാവുന്നത്, അല്ലെ വാട്ട് എവർ ഇറ്റ് വാസ് that I was doing technically mattered. So always I would say talk to people, seek mentorship and help, and that is why these kind of talks and conversations are really important, because sometimes what you miss out about yourself, another person will be able to direct and navigate you in the right direction. So I resigned, I came back and started my applications abroad. So let's zoom a little bit. So 2012 it was a very critical decision making time of my life. I was breaking down many conventional barriers around me at a point. So I had no knowledge of how to apply abroad in the right way. Nobody from my university or my classmates or anyone I have seen have gone abroad is everyone will say, oh, I want to go there, I want to do this and that. പക്ഷെ ആ സമയത്ത് 2013-17 സമയത്തൊന്നും ഇത് കേട്ട് കേൾവി പോലും ഇല്ല. വേറെ I studied, right? And even in SRM, I've seen undergraduates go for exchange programs. പക്ഷേ റിസർച്ചിനോ ഇതിനൊന്നും അത്ര ഒരു ഹാപ്പനിങ് സ്പേസ് ആയിരുന്നില്ല. So Google was my friend and guide in the whole process. So that's a long story, as you can see, from 2012 to 2013, spanning a year. This is because you're an international student applying for a research or a PhD program. So and the processes of how I did it, I'll just be very quick, and we can detail on it later on in the questionnaire session if people have specific questions. So what I did is I first researched on the top 20 to 30 universities, charted a list of universities where I had my area of interest. Then I decided that MIT, Harvard, Stanford, those kind of US universities wouldn't be a good option for me at this particular juncture of my life. We're already done 2 years of masters and so on. And I was already facing a lot of opposition going abroad. So increasing the number of years to my studying life was not an option for me. Our choice I focused on UK. So I then started to apply. So I Googled for good research, statement of purposes, proposals, formats, CVs, and I started applying. So applications close around October 2000. Applying the summit, the 2012 applications closing. So I had some time to apply. So Cambridge and Oxford, they took almost 3 months to shortlist. I wasn't actually waiting to hear back from both Cambridge or Oxford. That's എനിക്കൊരു ആഗ്രഹം കൊണ്ട് apply ചെയ്തതാണ്. പക്ഷെ ആ സമയത്ത് Manchester University got back to me. I got dual scholarship. അവിടുത്തെ President Scholarship of Electrical Engineering Scholarship, almost 1.5 crores in the മുകളിലുള്ള almost 2 crores for 3 years I got it. ആ സമയത്ത് ഡിസംബറിലാണ് എനിക്ക് കേംബ്രിഡ്ജില് ഇന്റർവ്യൂ കോൾ വരുന്നത്. So obviously I got super excited. ഞാൻ അമ്മയടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞു, I'm just glad I got shortlisted. കിട്ടുന്നൊന്നും തോന്നുന്നില്ല, എന്നാലും ഇന്റർവ്യൂസ് അറ്റൻഡ് ചെയ്യാന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. കാരണം നമ്മൾ എപ്പോഴും വിചാരിക്കുന്നത് നമ്മളൊരു സാധാരണ ടൗണിലൊക്കെ ഗ്രാമത്തിലൊക്കെ ഉള്ള ഒരു സെറ്റപ്പ് do I have it to make it to Cambridge? I was not very sure. So I attended the 1-hour-long interview. It was a Skype interview. I answered almost all the questions. I think there was one question where I struggled a bit. So because I have answered almost all questions, I had little hopes. And I told, again, I came back to my mother and said, oh, I think I have a chance. And he told me, there's a good chance that I will get into this. Okay. Since I had then I started reaching out to people who probably I thought would have studied in these kind of universities, and I couldn't find anyone within my scope of reach. So I didn't want to pin my hopes high. So I went on with the Manchester visa procedure, and after a week, I got Cambridge admission confirmed. Pinne oru February mudal there are another set of official processes. കാരണം കേംബ്രിഡ്ജും ഓക്സ്ഫോർഡിലും ഇതേ സമയത്ത് തന്നെയാണ് എനിക്ക് ഓക്സ്ഫോർഡ് യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ ഇന്റർവ്യൂ ഇല്ലാതെ തന്നെ കേംബ്രിഡ്ജ് PhD offer letter വന്നു. But I decided that because of the kind of research I wanted to do, I will stick to Cambridge. അങ്ങനെയാണ് കേംബ്രിഡ്ജിൽ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ തീരുമാനിക്കുന്നത്. So ആ സമയത്ത് what happens is after you are taken by your supervisor, he has to give your name for the scholarships parallelly and to the department. അപ്പോൾ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിന്റെ നമ്പേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ടാവും, ഇത്ര സ്റ്റുഡൻസിനെയാണ്, അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ, administrative work. So they will again confirm that the department has accepted you by February. അത് കൺഫേം ആയി. പിന്നെ ഒരു collegiate system ആണ്. അതിപ്പോ നമ്മൾ പറയുന്ന പോലെ ക്യുസാറ്റിന്റെ കീഴിലുള്ള കോളേജിൽ ഞാൻ പഠിച്ചു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, ആ ഒരു പരിപാടിയല്ല. കേംബ്രിഡ്ജിൽ there are many departments, ഓക്സ്ഫോർഡിലായാലും സെയിം സിസ്റ്റം. കോളേജിലാണ് നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു സോഷ്യൽ ലൈഫ്, നമ്മളെ എക്സ്ട്രാ കരിക്കുലർ ലൈഫ്, നമ്മളെ ട്യൂട്ടോറിയൽ സിസ്റ്റം, ഇതൊക്കെ നടക്കുന്നത് കോളേജസിലാണ്. Whereas ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിലാണ് നമ്മൾ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നതും റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നതും ഒക്കെ. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് എപ്പോഴും ഒരു കോളേജ് മെമ്പർഷിപ്പ് വേണം. സോ ആ കോളേജ് സെലക്ഷൻ നടക്കുന്നത് ആ സമയത്താണ്. എനിക്കപ്പോ ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റി വലിയ ധാരണയൊന്നുമില്ല. ഞാൻ അഗൈൻ ഗൂഗിൾ ചെയ്തിട്ടാണ് ഈ കോളേജിന്റെ ഇതൊക്കെ കൊടുക്കുന്നത്, ഓപ്ഷൻസ്. ഞാൻ ചർച്ചിൽ എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് ബേസ്ഡ് അലുമിനായി ഉള്ള കോളേജ് ആണെന്ന് കണ്ടു, അതുകൊണ്ട് ചർച്ചിൽ കോളേജ് ഫസ്റ്റ് ഓപ്ഷൻ ആയിട്ട് കൊടുത്തു. അങ്ങനെയാണ് ചർച്ചിൽ എനിക്ക് പക്ഷെ ഒരു പ്രശ്നമില്ലാണ്ട് കിട്ടി. If you don't get your first option, they will sometimes help you choose other options as well. It depends on what kind of college that you're applying for. Some students will choose specific colleges. Women's only college ഉണ്ട്, അതേപോലെ certain scholarships കിട്ടുന്ന colleges ഉണ്ട്. അതൊക്കെ നോക്കിയിട്ട് ഒരു informed decision എടുക്കണം. പിന്നെ sometimes students choose a certain college കാരണം proximity to work. So that will be another reason as well. So ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള different reasons നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു ലൈഫ് എങ്ങനെ ഈസി ആക്കാം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു ഡിസിഷൻ മേക്കിംഗിലാണ് ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ഇതൊക്കെ വന്ന് അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് വിസയും പിന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ സ്റ്റുഡൻസിന് there is something called ETAS, അതൊക്കെ കിട്ടി വരുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് it's almost a year. And in 2013 September 2013 I was all set to travel to Cambridge. So 2013 was obviously a big turning point in my professional life, personally achieving that independence to do what I thought I was right and best for me. So I can talk more about the application process later on if people want to know more about the CV and SOP and all that. But just to point out, it is very important that you write your statement of purpose and your resume and everything highly formulated. You have to convince the university why you want to do this particular course or research or whatever. They are not going to admit you just based on your ability to cram knowledge. ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു ഞാൻ ടോപ്പർ ആയിരുന്നു, റാങ്ക് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, അതുണ്ടായിരുന്നു, ഇതുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. That and all will not guarantee you a place at Oxbridge. So you really have to tell them what are the things that you have done in your life that makes you a worthwhile Oxbridge applicant. So that's the thing that we need to be careful about while applying. Indian universities ആയിട്ടുള്ള വലിയൊരു ഡിഫറൻസ് അതാണ്. People will say, oh, just നമ്മൾക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെ ടിക്ക് ബോക്സ് ആയിട്ട് അപ്ലൈ ചെയ്യാം, nobody is going to read. No. As a Cambridge University engineering interviewer, I can tell you, we read each and every application. We go through each and every CV and statement of purpose. Again, this was mostly for graduate courses, what I've been talking about, and research. Undergraduate, it's a slightly different system in a sense that Britain or a normal portal under UCAS nu parayna portal lodiyana apply cheya. Appo idu again we can come back to it when we answer certain questions. So just so that you know, you have to apply through this UCAS procedure. Again, you'll have to go through tests. You'll have to submit written works. You'll have interviews and so on. So you can see, or June mudal or January variyana our decision making process enna nadakkunnathu. And after that, as internationals, you'll have to find funding. You'll have to go through your visa, ETAS, and so on and so forth. So please be cognizant that it will take at least a year for you to go through the process. Another thing that I wanted to point out is, ഞാൻ apply ചെയ്യുന്ന കാലത്തൊക്കെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ഇപ്പോൾ Cambridge and Oxford in itself has very thorough with videos, very accessible website, and where they have clearly mentioned undergraduate mudal postgraduate vareyulla ella kind of courses adine engane apply cheyam, application internationals ne venda support system. They even provide open days. Pinne Cambridge and Oxford now they have after COVID and stuff, they have the virtual tours that you can take. So those who are interested, please go through these websites and you will get a feel of being at Cambridge. You'll hear the voices and testimonials from people who are studying there. So if you're interested, please make an effort to go through this. It's very detailed. So yeah, like I said, in September 2013, I landed in Cambridge. It was like living a dream. I cannot put those emotions into words. I was traveling abroad for the first time, and that in itself was a big learning. And from then on, it was an adventurous 5 years, I'll say, with phenomenal ups and traumatic lows as well. That's just life. So PhD was an incredibly challenging and rewarding time of life. I would say that Cambridge, eniki kittiyathu our intellectual platform, it actually gave me the freedom to do independent research, establish collaborations, renew my business acumen, where I co-founded 2 startups. So essentially, Cambridge തുറന്നു തന്നത് വളരെ അത്ഭുതകരമായിട്ടുള്ള അവസരങ്ങൾ, ലോകോത്തര എക്സ്പോഷർ, അതിശയകരമായിട്ടുള്ള നെറ്റ്വർക്കിംഗ് അറീന, ഇതൊക്കെ ആണ് എനിക്ക് കേംബ്രിഡ്ജിൽ കിട്ടിയത്. So I will not go into my research or anything. That's not required for this audience. But as a researcher who went to do a PhD in research, it's I have to say something. So talking about my research in brief. So as you all know, എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാവുന്ന കാര്യമാണ്, നമ്മൾ ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റിനെ പറ്റി സംസാരിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ അധിക ആളുകളും വാൾ ഔട്ട്ലെറ്റിലൂടെ നമ്മളെ സോക്കറ്റ്സിലൂടെ വരുന്ന ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റി, we charge our appliances, gadgets and systems. നമ്മൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കേണ്ട ഒരു കാര്യം, trillions of adjustments are made every single second to deliver electricity from your wall outlets to power any of your electrical or electronic devices. അപ്പോൾ ഇതൊക്കെ പോസിബിൾ ആവുന്നത്, ഇതിന്റെയൊക്കെ ഒരു ഹാർട്ട് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് പവർ ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് കൺവേർട്ടേഴ്സ് ആണ്. കൺവെൻഷനലി ഇത് സിലിക്കൺ ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ടാണ് ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത്. സോ നമ്മൾ എല്ലാവരും ഇപ്പോൾ വളരെ ഫാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വേൾഡിലാണ് അല്ലെ. We talk a lot about everything getting smaller, lighter, denser, faster, and as human beings, നമ്മുടെ ഒരു psychology എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് we want everything at a very cheap price as well. So ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള demands ഒരു 21st century environmental pollution control trendsന്റെ ഒരു സ്പേസിൽ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ researchersന് silicon, see, you can't beat the physics of silicon, right? So my research work basically ഈ ഒരു problem address ചെയ്യാൻ പുതിയ നൂതനമായ മെറ്റീരിയൽസ് ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ട് എങ്ങനെ ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് പവർ കൺവേർട്ടേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ടാക്കാം, അതിനു വേണ്ടി ഗാലിയം നൈട്രൈഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു നെക്സ്റ്റ് ജനറേഷൻ ഡിവൈസ് ഉപയോഗിച്ച് എങ്ങനെ ഈ ഒരു പ്രശ്നം പരിഹരിക്കാം എന്നതാണ് എൻ്റെ റിസർച്ച് നോക്കിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. സോ മൈ വർക്ക് ബേസിക്കലി ലുക്ക്ഡ് ഇൻടു bridging that gap between the laboratory phase and commercialization of gallium nitride converters using machine learning. So that is essentially what I did in the course of 4 years. പക്ഷെ ഇതൊക്കെ നമ്മളൊരു ടെക്നിക്കൽ സ്റ്റോറിയാണ്. വാട്ട്സ് എ സ്റ്റോറി ബിഹൈൻഡ് ദ സീൻസ്? എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരു behind the scenes story ഉണ്ടാവും അല്ലെ. So during this time at Cambridge around 2014, I was battling so many issues and I felt very helpless and hopeless because my research guide, supervisor, alle advice ennu parayna aal, he decided to leave. ഞാൻ join ചെയ്ത ഒരു കൊല്ലമാകുമ്പോൾ അയാൾ ലീവ് ചെയ്തു. See, നമ്മളൊരു ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ സ്റ്റുഡന്റ്, നമ്മൾ ഓരോരുത്തരും ഓരോ വ്യക്തികളാണ് അല്ലെ. നമ്മൾക്ക് ഓരോ ഡിസിഷൻ മേക്കിങ്ങിന്റെ പിന്നിലും ഓരോ റീസൺസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. എനിക്ക് മാഞ്ചസ്റ്ററിലെ ഒരു ഡ്യുവൽ സ്കോളർഷിപ്പ് ഞാൻ വിട്ടിട്ട് കേംബ്രിഡ്ജിൽ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ എനിക്ക് അതിന് എന്റേതായ റീസൺസ് ഉണ്ട്. So I had struggled, sacrificed and survived a not so easy journey to Cambridge. So I was not ready to give it up just because there were external circumstances beyond my control. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഒരു സമയത്ത് that actually changed the course of my life. So I decided, and if എല്ലാവരും പറഞ്ഞു you came all the way from India, supervisor പോവാണ്, either you go with him to an university he is going, or it will be a very challenging thing to complete a self-directed PhD. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ വിചാരിച്ചു, for all these reasons, I said, giving up is generally not in my agenda. So whilst you're trying to survive in a different world, different weather, different culture, particularly challenging for someone who has had very less exposure in their life, I decided I will actually try and survive or navigate this. I'm going to right from my school days, I was very active in extracurricular activities. I had a good aptitude for meta skills and so on and so forth. Cambridge, I was just, being that Indian who just wanted to focus on the research and studies alone. I was one of the few female engineers, and I was a non-IITian. So all these forced me to just focus on my work. And this particular problem got me back to me being who I am. So from 2014 to 15, I started getting involved in societies at Cambridge, like IEEE, UK Power Electronics Forum, Angana. So I stumbled on a friend who invited me to co-found a startup, and this was Born for Value. I'll not go into the details, but experience, I realized I loved being in a team, sharing the same vision with people having complementary skill sets. So this later motivated me to co-found another startup with my brother called Woody. So essentially, summing up my technical research, this is what it looks like in timeline style. So why I want to just project this over is, as students, you need to understand that research involves a lot of things. And obviously, I gave a lot of keynotes, I've got a lot of scholarships, and I did all this independently. Now, it was during that time that I was running into my 4th year, which obviously will not have scholarships. And that is why I ran for the Graduate Union Vice President post. And that actually gave me an opportunity, a surprise opportunity to change something. So I ran a campaign for accountable and responsible PhD supervisions. And the whole problems were caused by my supervisor leaving. So I was able to change a catastrophe in my life to something productive and useful for others. So how this becomes important for me personally and professionally is that I discovered I had a big interest in policy and its utmost significance in changing societies, work in and beyond the boundaries of your academia, your learning and lab. Now tying this back to my school days, I know you can see the life coming full circle. Now I knew what to do with my interest in social science, my intersectional interest in engineering, education, policy, and all that coming full circle. So this is exactly why the reason I think you should be developing all the skill sets that and the passion that you have as you move along your student life. So you'll not achieve anything in life by just cramming knowledge. So in short, Cambridge offered me wonderful opportunities. Obviously, it came with its baggage of challenges, but it always opened doors to new possibilities. So during my PhD, Cambridge engineering students in a Padippikan Avasaram as a tutor. I was an interviewer for Cambridge engineering undergraduate admissions. I was the secretary of IEEE Cambridge. I was a founding chairperson of the EPSRC UK Power Electronics Forum. So all these actually helped me establish a network with prominent researchers, academics, policymakers, and all those to establish a space in the UK research arena. But if you ask me what's the most proudest moment of my life, obviously is the day where I defended that self-supervised and self-directed PhD, answering all the questions. Now, since my research was not a smooth journey, and most of the time research is never a smooth journey. It's a unique problem, it's a global problem, because PhD is very much dependent on, it's all about many people involved in your journey. So I wanted to make sure if I wanted to be a scientist, fellowships in apply. So depending upon what kind of fellowships apply, it is again almost a 1 to 2 year long process. Other a competitive spirit it is a lengthy procedure. Again, we can discuss in depth if people are interested to know. So I'm going to Oxford University, UCLA. Obviously, because I've already established myself in UK, I decided I wanted to continue in UK. Anganeyana Oxford Schlumberger Fellowship join Jayal. My PhD experience and the things that I did during that time, I figured I didn't want to be a traditional academic. I did not want to be a full-time entrepreneur. So I actually wanted to bring all these skills and interests to forge a career that fits, that works best for me. And that's one of the things that I realized during my PhD journey. So just to put things into perspective or summarize the research and the startup space. So these are some of the points that you should remember is that PhD is a highly challenging and lonely undertaking. Please ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What area? Where are you going to do it? What is the funding available? And the million-dollar question is, do you have it in you to actually see through, to complete this journey? So different questions നിങ്ങൾ answer ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ സ്വയം ചോദിക്കുക, introspect ചെയ്യുക, reflect ചെയ്യുക, talk to your peers, colleagues, whoever it is. And then the most important or key part is investigate the PhD supervisor you want to work with. അവരുടെ track record എന്താണ്? എത്ര കുട്ടികൾ അവരുടെ കീഴിൽ PhD കിട്ടിയിട്ടുണ്ട്? What are they doing? അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ എപ്പോഴും മനസ്സിലാക്കിയിട്ട് വേണം ഒരു PhD-യിലേക്ക് embark ചെയ്യാൻ. Then other admin procedures, right? Understand the eligibility criteria and so on and so forth. There are many other things, but these are very key. Because I've been in the startup space, people, research and startups are like very hype and happening space. So please do ask yourself, do not enter into these things. Either random research ayalum, startup ayalum, it's not like a 9-to-5 job. Either a way of life. Success. കിട്ടണമെങ്കിൽ അതിനുള്ള ഒരു പാഷൻ, ഒരു ആപ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഡ് വേണം. You can still do it and you will develop many skills and you can diverge. That's a different story. But it is very difficult to understand why you want to embark on this journey before you do. So as for me, like I said, I thought about how to bring all this intersectional experience in engineering, education, entrepreneurship, research, and innovation together. So having had this parallel careers, juggling the worlds of academia and industry with a strong flair for active engineering education, I decided to look for such opportunities. Our Sametana Dyson Institute in the vision kanda, they wanted to, develop engineering leaders, and that obviously fascinated me. And that is how I applied to Dyson Institute. COVID struck. My plans did not immediately work out, like millions across the globe. Uncertainty ruled all of our lives. So, bringing together your values, your training and aspirations, I'm trying to currently design and develop an engineering education based on how engineers think. So, എന്നെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ഒരു എഞ്ചിനീയർ ആയിരിക്കുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഒരു ബിരുദം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ജോലി പരിചയം മാത്രമല്ല, അതൊരു ചിന്താ രീതിയാണ്, അതൊരു ജീവിത രീതിയാണ്. So I basically base my teaching and research on the belief that engineering thinking needs to be cultivated, nurtured, and encouraged to help students learn to be a futuristic engineer. So that's what I do, inculcating innovation, enterprise, and research into my engineering, design, teaching, and related activities. So I am cognizant of the time, but I think we can continue. So in short, I would say engineering offered me many opportunities, which came with its baggage of challenges. And like I always said, as you can see in my journey, it offered opportunities to other wonderful possibilities. So summing up, I can say as a student fascinated by making things, by physics and maths, I was drawn into engineering. As an engineer interested in specializing, I got into power electronics. During which time frame and or aptitude, research, teaching, or aptitude, PhD pursue and motivated. Systematic barriers during the PhD gave me the freedom to use my meta skills to discover my interest in entrepreneurship, engineering education, and STEM outreach. Alongside all this, it's my personal journey as a woman in engineering that motivates me to, for example, be talking to you today, to do mentorship and so on. So I have integrated my education, expertise, and experience, and my passion for teaching and technology. So basically my passion, my empathy, and my drive into a purpose. And that's what's on my agenda right now, right? I can see that my personal and professional lives are very intertwined. But end or experience of environment value system 4G and Sahaichal. So the person, the empathetic engineering educator I am today, and all the ethos that drives me and everything that I do is because of my own background, my own experiences, and so on. So as you can see, it's a culmination of all these converging, diverging, branching, and expanding at certain junctures that obviously helped me convert my passion into a purpose. More importantly, my story coming full circle of being able to apply that inter or cross-disciplinary interest in social science and engineering together. So while I was growing up, studying and working, and disciplines were very siloed. So as you can see, this is why I said before that my career journey is a natural progression of specialism and skills, finding its application at certain junctures. So alongside all this, like I've pointed out, it's my journey as a woman of color in engineering, as they call it in the UK, that motivated me to start mentorship, outreach, public engagement as part of paying it forward for the next generation. So all these different roles like the Queen Elizabeth Prize in Engineering Global Ambassador and all the leadership roles in multiple organizations and initiatives came out organically. While I was doing certain things, it started popping up here and there, and I utilized those opportunities. So all I initially wanted was to have a freedom of choice to make, to forge a career I wanted to have that voice and space in a world, irrespective of my race, gender, ethnicity, or neurodiversity. So that was the thing that drove me to do whatever it is that I was doing. So an engineer in the Nilakya, I'll just quickly run you through the possibilities of engineering. So basically engineering runs the world. Or engineer aanu ningalude nammude ellavurude oru day-to-day life run cheyyunnathu. Pakshe Indiyil prathesham Keralathil adine patti valare thechaya oru perception um dharanayanu. Engineers ne poduve oru technicians anganeyulla electrical electronics engineer aanu. So you can, you are here to repair my TV. Ennulla oru reethiyilanu aalukal adine kannunathu. It is the most undervalued, undermined, and disrespected profession globally. So, endana actually engineering? How do you define engineering? So, as for, I can say that the creative thinking of engineers makes humanity's biggest dreams possible. So, from consumer electronics to spaceships and life beyond Earth, from entertainment, fashion to amusement, if you look closely, engineering is at the heart of everything. Ningal dharikkunna vastram mudala shoes, your phone in your hand, through to the laptops you're listening this from, the games you play and the food you eat. Engineering brings these ideas to life and essentially turns dreams to realities. So it's very hard to overstate the importance of engineers. Archimedes and his hydraulics to Brunel and his railways, engineers made the modern day world possible. So idana engineering engil, aarana engineers? Very simply put, I would say engineers make things, we make things work, we make things work better for society. So we need engineers to solve almost all of the world's problems, from farming and energy to automation. There's a fascinating world of engineering life. So, we are on the brink of this period of irreversible change in technology, with new ways in which engineering expertise is made available to society. You think about the exponential growth and fusion of breakthroughs in sensor technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, bioengineering, etc., etc. See, all these are converging because of the hyper-connectedness of the digital world. When chuttum nadakkunna ee oru revolution, it is basically transforming our lives, our world of business, and our global economy. And technology actually is a domain of engineers and engineering scientists and practitioners. It's essentially a very important or critical component in making these innovations and inventions possible. So to these graduates or aspiring graduates or students in this virtual room, you will be at the heart of this revolution. So by 2040, students of today will be halfway through your career and will operate as specialists, integrators, and innovators of ideas and technologies across the public, private, academic sector. So tomorrow's engineers essentially will be called upon to perform an increasing amount of what-to-do functions and engage with experts from multiple fields. So if you look at it, this new breed of engineers will not only need to be comprehensive problem solvers, but you will need to be problem definers, leading multidisciplinary teams, setting agendas, fostering innovation, adding value to all aspects of society. So engineers will be crucial in helping build a sustainable future in an increasingly complex, volatile, ambiguous, and uncertain world. So why I wanted to emphasize and talk about it is this is like the vision of a 21st century engineer. Unprecedented. So to be successful in managing and finding solution to complex issues, the pandemic, climate change, to engineering life at mass, transformative approaches. So complicated technical, societal, political, geographical, and environmental challenges tackling, it all comes down to engineering a better world, to be able to think profoundly in a creative manner, to bring all this broad range of approaches together. So if you are planning to take up engineering, or if you're thinking about what it offers, know that it offers immense possibilities. Always see the big picture. So from code breakers to music shapers, globe and space trotters, I would say engineering brings life for a better world. So whether you are into sports or arts or fashion or festivals, trainers or teaching, there is always a place in engineering for you. So I would just like to emphasize that's one of the most demanding and challenging and rewarding professions of the future. So please do consider that when you think about different professions that you would want to choose. So to sum up, never to give up generally has been the running theme of my life, but I would say it always comes with its caveats and terms and conditions. Never to give up, but there is not always, I'm not someone who will say, I have an option A and I stubbornly want that. No, life is very unpredictable. You don't know what is going to hit you. So you always need to have B, C, D, all the, set options and more that you can find. So I'm not anyone to give advice, but my humble suggestion would be to you all amazing people, constantly work to be the best version of you. In hindsight, I can clearly see that I think with my heart more and not always with my brains. So as I move on in my life, I acknowledge there is no thing as a perfect job. A perfect job, perfect course, perfect degree, perfect career, perfect partner. So that's an understanding and acknowledgement that you all need to have. So as an electronics engineer, developing a career circuit in the landscape of teaching and technology, accept there are trade-offs to make, right? Each depends on each person, the priorities, passions, the risk. So how can you achieve your balance of fulfillment and happiness? That is unique to each one of you. And that is shaped by your background, your personal and professional values, interest, and character. So what are you willing to do to live your dreams? What motivates you to get up every day? And what satisfies you to have a comfortable sleep at night? Unique. That is a question that you should all be continuously asking yourself. Ningalde jeevithathil ningalde abhinivesham endana, ningalde passion endana, adu oru reality aakan ningal edukkan tayarayittulla risk endokkeyanu, ningalde chuttupaadumulla ningalde responsibilities endokkeyanu, ningalde value systems endokkeyanu, ningalde sandosham, ningalde oru santulita avastha, that is very important, right? Adokke enganeyanu ee oru variables okke vechukonde nedan kazhiya. Ee oru equation aanu valare complicated aayittulla oru equation aanu nammal orotharum solve cheyan nokkunnu. അത് ഒരിക്കലും മറ്റൊരാളുടെ ബേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടാവരുത്. സോ നമ്മളുടെ സ്വപ്നങ്ങളൊക്കെ ജീവിക്കാൻ എന്താണ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടതെന്ന് നമ്മൾ തന്നെ തീരുമാനിക്കണം. So in conclusion, I would say try to understand yourself better. I always repeat that. What do you want from life is a continuous question that you should be asking. You will have different answers at different time frames of your life, and that's totally fine. I did not realize that I'm going to come back to engineering policy at some point in my life, and I can see how that has come full circle, and that's totally fine. It will always give you the voice and space to own up to your own actions and aspirations, charting a career that fits in with you and your world. So I think continually question what it is that you want to do, what it is that makes you happy, what it is that gives you a good sleep at night. So thank you very much for your patient listening. I'm dot on 15 minutes more than the allocated time, but I assure you I will be happy to take questions and later on. So thank you so much once again to Dr. Murali, Neeraja, Arun, and Shruti for having me, and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikita. It was a wonderful speech. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
You are, yes.
Thank you. So I think well explained about your experience, like, you know. So I think we got some questions from Zoom. So shall we move on to Q&A? So
I'm just trying to stop the screen sharing. Okay.
sure. Yeah. So we have a lot many questions here. So so I'll read one question. It's about securing admission in all the prestigious institutions like Cambridge and Oxford. So when you approach for PhD admission or research admission, so what is the procedure for masters and postgraduate courses, research courses?
So I think I've kind of quickly scanned through the research admission process. It is almost the same for masters, but it will be very unique to each course. So applying one ശ്രദ്ധിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് കേംബ്രിഡ്ജിലായാലും ഓക്സ്ഫോർഡിലായാലും ഒരു ബ്ലാങ്കറ്റ് അപ്രോച്ച് ഇല്ല. So it is unlike for undergraduate admissions where you have to apply through the UCAS, which is a British charity integrating all the application process. Masters courses ഒക്കെ ആണെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഏത് മാസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് കോഴ്സ് ആണ് നിങ്ങൾ അപ്ലൈ ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് ആദ്യം you have to decide on the course അല്ലെ. എന്നിട്ട് അതിലേക്ക് എലിജിബിലിറ്റി ക്രൈറ്റീരിയ നോക്കുക. എന്നിട്ട് അതിന് എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് procedures നോക്കുക. Because for example, some of the ഞാനൊരു എക്സാമ്പിൾ പറയാം, നാനോ ടെക്നോളജിയിലൊക്കെ ഉള്ള കോഴ്സ് ആണെങ്കിൽ you have to write a test. And then, they will screen you out. You have to apply. Then they'll ask you to write a test. Then they will screen you out. Then you will have an interview. So essentially, almost all the admission procedures will be very lengthy. But some of the courses, master's courses, and some of the executive courses, executive MBA, അതേപോലെ part-time courses ഒക്കെ കുറച്ചുകൂടെ shorter time frame ഉള്ള straightforward admission procedures ആയിരിക്കും. So my first and foremost suggestion would be always go to what course you want and look through the procedures. Any other blanket approach illa. Pinne why I can't say to you is also because there are almost 350 plus master's courses in Cambridge alone, and so same is the case for Oxford. Ava ee oro course num oro different reedigalana. So please go through the application procedures and make sure that you understand it.
Thank you. There is another question about research funding. How can I get research funding in Oxbridge? Is it possible to do research after distance masters? Any pre-work or research publication suggested? Is that necessary?
So I think there was a slight breakage in your question. So if I understand this right, this person is asking if it's possible to do research after masters or after undergraduation.
After masters, but distant. I think distant masters, maybe through distant education.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I would need a bit more insight into what kind of distant education that it is that you have done. So here, for this particular case, my suggestion would be, so firstly, if you are targeting, for example, in Cambridge or Oxbridge, talk to this particular research group head or research group faculty that you want to do research. എന്നിട്ട് നോക്കുക. Again, like I said, ഓരോ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ്സിനും ഓരോ ഗ്രൂപ്പ്സിനും അവരുടേതായ ഒരു റിസർച്ച് പ്രൊസീജിയേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ടാവും. So sometimes you have secretaries that you can write to, they will guide you. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ directly our professor our faculty na approach ചെയ്യുക, email വഴി approach ചെയ്തിട്ട് അവരുടെ അടുത്ത് ചോദിക്കുക. This is the, പക്ഷെ ഈ ഒരു particular case it might be better for you to ask an administrator educational assistant that you can find from contacts ഉണ്ടാവും, and they will be able to navigate you properly. ഞാൻ ഇന്ന course ആണ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത്. അത് obviously you don't have to go into the details. ഈ ഒരു course which is essentially a part-time distance learning course, ഈ ഒരു course ചെയ്തത് കൊണ്ട് can I apply എന്നുള്ള ഒരു question അവരുടെ അടുത്ത് നേരിട്ട് ചോദിക്കുക. Why I'm saying this again is it's very unique to each person and each supervisor and each department. So they can decide after seeing your CV that, oh, it's okay, this person has done a lot of work, and so we are happy to take. So unless avarku angana oru policy illengil, they will be happy to accommodate you. So that's the right word. So I would say just please, take the initiative and write to email these people, and I'm happy to talk about it more in depth later on. If you want to have the conversation later on, please feel free to drop me an email and we can take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I think you can drop your email in the chat box or LinkedIn profile. So what will be okay?
Yeah, I can do that.
So there is another question. So can you explain about the diversity in the campus in Oxford and Cambridge? Is the integration a challenge from somebody from India? Because both are two different systems, when we study in India and when we go abroad. So can you compare them?
That's a really good question. So essentially, let's just talk, as an Oxbridge model, for example, Oxford has almost 24,000 students, and I think it's almost 11,000 or 12,000 undergraduates, and almost the same number of postgraduates. So according to their statistics, they say that more than 40% of the people are from outside UK. And especially for the postgraduate courses, it might be, I think it is somewhere around 45 to 50% of the international students. And for the graduate students, it's almost 64%. So for me, Oxbridge, I would say it's one of the most diverse and ethnically unique universities I have been. You don't essentially feel like you are in a different country, like a white, majorly white country like the UK. So while I was at Oxbridge, I've never felt that, but I do feel that now that I'm at Dyson, you feel like, oh, you're surrounded by different people. So the good thing about Oxbridge is that it is essentially a very diverse university with very less number of UK or people. So you will not have much of an issue that way, but you need to understand that at the end of the day, you're in a different country, different culture. If 45% of the people are from across 150 countries in the world, you're trying to create, Oxbridge has a culture of its own. So churukathu parayanengil, Oxford and Oxbridge places are like a country in itself, right? ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള പല ആളുകളും പല നാട്ടുകാരും പല തരത്തിലുള്ള ഒരു ഇന്ററാക്ഷൻസ് ഒക്കെ ആയിട്ട് I would say അതില് ഞാൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ളത്, because now when you are in a different place, people will say, oh, you are an Oxbridge person. അത് മനസ്സിലാവുന്നുണ്ട് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക്, because there'll be some things that you do and all that which will kind of give that away. So I would say that it's a very diverse place to be, and you will not have huge problems assimilating because it's a very diverse culture in itself. But obviously you have to be cognizant of the fact that at the end of the day, it's the totally different world. It's like India in a way, unity in diversity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nikita. And there is another question. Basically, you are in the STEM. So compared to men, the number of women seems very low in STEM field. So how do you perceive that?
So the thing when I started doing my when I first landed in the UK, and വളരെ shock ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾ immigration officer, he asked me what I came to do, and I said electrical and electronics, and he asked, he said, oh, smart lady. So that's what he said first. Then he said, where? Cambridge. Oh, so you must be an incredibly smart woman. Yeah. So see, then essentially you're trying to tell me that because I'm at Cambridge, and because I'm doing electrical, they've given me the badge that, adugunda you are an intelligent lady. So generally, there is a perception in the Western countries that women are not very attuned for STEM professions. So India has more than 40 to 50% of women engineers. Adina namukku retain cheyanu higher levels of boardroom level like progress cheyanum kariyunnillengil koodi there are at least people who are taking up engineering, whereas in UK it's a tragic ratio, and even in the US 8 to 9% aanu ivarude oru engineering ratio ennu parayunnathu women in STEM. So it is a very globally relevant problem, and wherever it is I go, at Cambridge layalum, Oxford layalum, Dyson layalum, people will tell me in Cambridge le enki orupaadu prashnagal undayappo there was someone who told me, you are the only, that time I was only women in that electronics engineering space, and someone said me, why don't you put your head down and do your work? So I thought tala tarthi, that's what it means. Tala tarthi ningalku cheyan vanna joli cheyidittu poikkude. So what it essentially meant is that because I was doing outreach at startups, adonnum females nu pattitla pani alla, like you were just meant to, yeah. So I was really shocked. So atrayum ruthless aitla comments okke at least for me, I came with this very romantic notion of Charles Dickens and the version of a very developed United Kingdom, and I came to a very different, my perceived reality, imagination was very different from the perceived reality here. So as a woman, I would say that I have never allowed any of my identity as a woman to stop me from doing anything. So I would personally tell myself that I have a head and I'm gonna put it straight and look people into their eyes and talk. So I'm not gonna do that, and that is a suggestion or advice I would give to other females as well. Whatever be your gender, ethnicity, or neurodiversity, or whatever it is, do not tell someone that you are not good at something because of that. Yeah, so these are some of the challenges, but I would say idakka nammude life la evada poyalum people will try to put you down, endengilum oru karanam avaru kandupidikkum. So if you are a man, they'll find some other reason. So every time man, I think psychologically human beings want to be above the other person. Adipo technically pattillengil avaru gender konduvarum allengil class allengil angane ulla pala kind of identities aalukal konduvaran shramikkum. Historically anganeyana, from wars to all this kind of issues are happening because of that. And just understand that, do not take it personally. Adana adile ettavum valiya oru navigation strategy ennu parayunnathu. The moment you personalize it, you lose it. So try to be as emotionally detached from the identity catcalling as much as possible, and try to navigate it. If this is a female who has asked this question, my advice would be find your gang, find your tribe of women who will support you. As women support each other, so find your tribe of women and men and find your allies. And it's always important that you have a good connected group around you to help you navigate and support this journey. So the more higher you climb up, there will be so many people trying to pull you down. So that's something you have to understand. And yeah, just accept that you are a woman, take pride in being a woman or a female engineer or female in STEM or whatever, and make utilization of whatever the strength that it actually gives you, the gender gives you as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's very surprising for me. Yeah. So there is another question. It's about whether you know any coaching institutions or career counselor who help people to get into Oxbridge. Maybe in another way, is it need whether you need a counselor or a coach to get admission in Oxford.
Again, that's a really good and key question. I wanted to point out that in the talk, but I thought we ran out of time, but good that you brought it up. So even when you look at some of the Cambridge and Oxford sites that I've mentioned, they've very clearly said that they are very well aware that there are private companies and consultants who offer at a charge information and advice on the admission procedures, assessments, and interviews. So you should know that it's okay to pay someone and get these information, but you should know that neither Cambridge nor Oxford do not support or encourage any of these commercial enterprises. So ivarku aarkum Cambridge Oxford aayittu direct collaboration partnership ingane onnu undavilla. You know, I have seen many people who say I did my research from Cambridge at like Dubai, some random places, and I got in through this particular consultancy or so on. So please be aware of the fact that all the information that you need to apply is very readily, very accessibly, very elaborately displayed in both written and video format with examples of interviews and students talking about the process and the life both at Oxbridge. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that should be more than enough, but you can actually talk to people who have studied there, who have gone through this process. Mentoring, insider view. If you're a Malayali, culture, ways of dealing with things, ways of writing, educational system, culture, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് റിലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരാളുമായിട്ട് സംസാരിച്ചിട്ട് ഒരു വൈസ് ആൻഡ് ഇൻഫോംഡ് ഡിസിഷൻ എടുക്കുന്നത് തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നന്നായിരിക്കും. പക്ഷെ ലൈക്ക് ഒരു പാർട്ട്ണർഷിപ്പ് ബേസിസിൽ Oxbridge never does anything with any of the consultants.
Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, so you have to just contact the admission office at that college or the Cambridge admissions or the Oxford admissions for any information. So I would say that's the best approach to take.
Yeah, I think they can contact with me, alumni or someone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said. They will have links and they'll have open days. They'll have mentors in there. And like Lena, for example, if you know people, LinkedIn is a wonderful place to stalk. So you're all the next generation, the fifth, the 5.0 generation. So you should be really good at stalking people, reaching out, taking that initiative and asking them, rather than giving money or rather than taking a paid consultancy to get into Oxbridge.
And there is another question. Is there any scholarship for undergraduate studies in Oxford?
Yeah, so it depends. Again, that depends upon. So that's a good question in a sense that you have more scholarships when it comes to research and when it comes to those kind of courses. Whereas when it comes to undergraduate support, especially in Oxbridge, you will not have as much as it is available for the other research-based courses. So again, like I said, there is go to that website, and if you go to international students and funding, you will, because the funding is very unique to your background. Sometimes they have funding for highly academically, highly inclined students. Sometimes they'll have funding based on your financial background, your parents' income, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you have funding based on the particular region or state. So a few years before, I would always say Google for as many scholarship opportunities as possible. And I've seen, for example, in northern part of the world, India, there are more scholarships and opportunities. And even government is nowadays trying to offer some support that is particularly for research. So be aware that one of the things that you should be very aware of when you try to apply to places like Oxbridge is, even when you ask someone like me who has studied there, I won't be able to tell you, oh, you can apply to this scholarship, because I'll have to know you as a person, your background, your course, the college you're applying to, all of it, to be able to make to arrive at that information, right? Which obviously I am not like an Oxbridge career counselor at the place, so I won't be able to tell you. So you should always be prepared to do a lot of research. A lot of initiative is needed to even just apply. So അത് നല്ല ഒരു ഇനിഷ്യേറ്റീവും ഒരുപാട് റിസർച്ചും ഹാർഡ് വർക്കും ഒക്കെ ചെയ്യാൻ തയ്യാറായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരാളാണെങ്കിലാണ് ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള സ്ഥലങ്ങളിൽ അപ്ലൈ ചെയ്യാൻ നിങ്ങൾ ശ്രമിക്കേണ്ടത്. പക്ഷേ ഹാവിങ് സെഡ് ഓൾ ദാറ്റ്, നിങ്ങളുടെ ഈ ഒരു എന്താ പറയുക ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസും ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനേഴ്സും സപ്പോർട്ട് സിസ്റ്റം ഒക്കെ വളരെ ബോക്സ്ഡ് ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ ആയിട്ട് അതിന്റെ ഇൻകം, അതിന്റെ ഡിഫറെന്റ് കോഴ്സിന്റെ ഫീസ്, സപ്പോർട്ട് സിസ്റ്റം ഒക്കെ കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. So please go and look at the funding website. എല്ലാം ഒരേ സൈറ്റിൽ തന്നെയാണ്. You can just go through the different options. So international students in a tablet പോയാൽ you can see all that.
So നമ്മൾ already agree ചെയ്ത time കഴിഞ്ഞു. Can we extend this up to 50 minutes?
Yeah, I'm happy to extend it.
Thank you, Nikita. There is another question about interview questions. I think it's interesting. What exactly do you look for in a statement of purpose? How long it should be? What are some of the typical interview questions?
Okay. Again, I have kind of touched upon this when I talked about research and all that. So essentially, a statement of purpose is, I'll talk about me as an example. So Nikita should be able to tell her story, right, to an unknown stranger who's gonna read hundreds of such different stories. So first of the thing is be authentic. When I was an interviewer, I'll be like, oh, because you've taken it from website, or you've asked a consultancy help. Everyone will start, when I read this book on, by this person on engineering, I decided I wanted to be an engineer. So that's a very common engineering statement of purpose that I've come across at Cambridge. So my first thing is, yes, scan or scope maximum good amount of statement of purposes. Cambridge and Oxford problem, it's not available online. So I would advise, go to MIT. Now Google MIT statement of purposes. They will have the statement of purpose come up. So again, in par with the Cambridge and Oxford standards, they'll have different ways in which you should write a statement of purpose. By MIT, Harvard, Stanford, readily available and accessible. You can, now you have an idea. Western universities statement of purpose looks like this. Our idea clarity is there. Mostly it will be 1 to 1.5 page. Do not write a big story. നമ്മൾ എത്രയും ആർട്ടിക്കുലേറ്റ് ആയിട്ട്, എത്രയും സക്സന്റ് ആയിട്ട് നമ്മളുടെ ജേർണി എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നു, അത്രയും നല്ലത്. സോ വാട്ട് യു നീഡ് ടു സേ ഇസ്, what is your education, what is your background, what are the different things that you are doing in your life. I always say nothing small is insignificant. For കേരളത്തിൽ ഞാനൊക്കെ പഠിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത്, when it was 2002, very long back, people will say, oh, you school leader, fine arts secretary, why don't you just concentrate on your studies? Even though I was a topper and all that, you could just concentrate on this, you could do that and this. But when it comes to these kind of universities, all these things will matter. So how have you, what have you done in life other than just cramming knowledge, right? എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് ചെയ്തത്, എന്തൊക്കെ skill set ആണ് നിങ്ങളുടെ ഒരു educational journey develop ചെയ്തത്? How was all that blending in together? For example, I was applying for a research. Your meta skills, I can argue that helped me develop my communication, my writing. So if I say that I've won all these prizes in essays and all that, it was easy for my story to come together. So I'm just giving an example. So you need to be able to, when I look at all these different students, they do a lot of stuff, online, offline. You're involved in a lot of clubs, activities, IEEE stuff, IET things. So you should be able to forge and weave your story and skill set such that it is in line with the course or the research or whatever it is that you are applying for. So tell it very genuinely. Adilana adinte ettavum valiya importance. Ningalde passion, aptitude and skill set. Why should Oxbridge take you, It's not about cramming knowledge. So Oxbridge is trying to create that intellectual space and platform where you are disseminating knowledge, you are contributing back to society. So you should be also aware that that's a two-way bridge. Or a to and fro, what is it that you have to offer to Oxbridge? In the Kuda, any of these Ivy League universities, in the question, answer. So that's what I would say. And generally in the CVs and stuff, I've seen people writing the marital status, your photograph, and your date of birth. So these are all considered to be your gender. These are all considered to be highly discriminatory information that you are providing to the reader or to the assessor. So please do not provide a photograph. Photograph some universities will ask for it, then you can do it. But otherwise, please do not provide these unnecessary information. It will not help you in any way, but it will act against you, because any application, my first instinct will be this person has not taken the initiative to find out how a Western University CV looks like. So you are giving a wrong, like a first impression. So just make sure that you are writing it in alignment with what they require.
Yeah, that was quite detailed. So നമുക്ക് ധാരാളം ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഇപ്പോഴും വരുന്നുണ്ട്, ബട്ട് നമുക്ക് ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനും കൂടി നമുക്ക് എടുക്കാമെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. I think how's Oxbridge approaching the online education revolution? How are they linking up with Coursera or FutureLearn? What is your view on future of education in a post-COVID world?
I think even before the pandemic, Oxbridge had, so even when we have lectures, right? Oxbridge has a very unique system in a sense that you go to these lectures where professors are going to lecture you. It's proper, they are talking at you. But you actually learn through the one-to-one or one-to-two tutorial system. I used to do tutorials. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഒരു individual attention നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഓക്സ്ബ്രിഡ്ജിൽ കിട്ടും. So the ratio is always 1:2. Now, moving online, even before pre-COVID, ELR lectures are recorded on it gets uploaded to Moodle, and we had a Moodle system or a Canvas, or online, we call it as an ILP, individual learning platform, where you can get access to all this. So I think Oxbridge was always ready. So it was probably not very disruptive when COVID happened to displace that to fully online system. And obviously, because of that 200+ number of students who attend lectures will still have to be offline, and this one-to-one or 1-to-2 systems they can do in person. That has been the Oxbridge approach. What is my take on the future of education, the digital education? So I think as academics, as educators, I believe that the role of an educator has fundamentally changed with the digital revolution. From being a creator of knowledge, we have become more like curators of knowledge, mentors, and we are like directors of knowledge, where we bring together many resources from different platforms and so on to give the best student experience. So teaching the Marita, it has become more student oriented to a very individualized and bespoke learning experience. Adilekana teaching and learning or education systems are changing, because there's no need of me to sit and stand and talk at people or engage with students, because you have access to all the information at your fingertips. So education has become very personalized and customized and bespoke.
So there is an interesting question from Robin Matthew, which is about how is the startup ecosystem in Oxbridge? I think it's about incubators or accelerators, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we call it the Cambridge phenomenon. Cambridge, they call it like that because I think University of Cambridge sits at the heart of one of the world's largest technology clusters. And it has created more than 1,500+ high-tech startup companies, and valued at more than $1 billion of US dollars, and so on and so forth, statistically. So as you can imagine, it is a hub to the startup phenomena. So that's why when you are, sad and sitting in a coffee club is how I started my first startup. So it's very much ingrained in the ethos of everything that you do from research. We're always thinking about how to commercialize it, how to do something that is of value to society. And so Cambridge and Oxford obviously have a lot of startups, accelerators, knowledge transfer and translator hubs. So it is the hub of startups and accelerators, I would say.
Yeah, there were questions about university rankings and all. So is there any specific or which is the most reliable ranking agency for UK university? Or we can just rely on QS World Ranking or Shanghai ranking?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Neeraja. Yes, so that's again like a controversial question, isn't it? So I would generally look for QS rankings, but I know that there are Times ranking and so on and so forth. So my advice there would be, so whether it's QS ranking or Times ranking or any other ranking, actually all these rankings are based on certain criteria. Mostly QS rankings will be, you can see based on the research output, the employability ratio, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of factors and variables on which these ranking systems are based on. So when you're looking at a ranking, if you're not happy just with one, I would say compare one or two ranking systems, QS plus Times plus some others. And most of the times it will be very similar, right? I think Oxford and Cambridge are almost always in the top 5, and MIT and Harvard have been in top 1 and 2 for some years, on and off. They slide 1 or 2 points on and off depending upon certain minute changes here and there in their student employment or research output or so on. So I would say QS plus any other ranking that you would want to rely on depending upon the country that you are applying.
Thank you so much, Nikita. A lot of questions are still there and answered.
I'm happy to take some if you want to, but depends.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we? If it is okay, we can take 2 more questions.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that.
And then we can wind up. Yeah. So there were questions about writing a CV. It's about job applications, I guess. It's not specified, but do you have any suggestions?
So writing a CV, again, I would say that, so for example, right, writing a CV for a academic job will be very different from an industry job. So my academic CV will at least be 10 pages because they want you to write about your research outputs, research papers, your proposals, and all this in length and detail. And as academics, we're very patient people. We are happy to do that. And we are also happy to read when other people do that. But if you are applying for an industry job, for example, they will specify, do not submit a CV more than 2 to 3 pages. So each of the, so basically academia and industry are the most highly diversified job positions or landscapes. Let's say it's 2 different worlds, right? So in academia, it will be that all those research and any academic related jobs, but then there can be that professional related jobs where you will have an industry based CV. So my suggestion there would be, depending upon what job you should always have for me and all, I'll have 2 to 3 different kinds of CV I can use depending upon the type of application I am making. So I'll have my academic CV. So being in a startup and in other commercial space, I'll have an industrial CV, both of which will have slightly different skills and strengths and aptitude and all that, and which is very different. So 1 to 2 pages versus 10 pages. So please make sure that you understand what is it that you're applying for and make your CV based on that. And I'm very academic that way. So I would just generally prefer to stick to the Oxbridge format or the MIT or a Harvard format when I'm applying. So they will say they will show you different formats for industry and academia. So, those are the kind of formats or samples that you should base when you write your CV, I would say.
So there is another question. I was very intrigued by your reference to departments and colleges. Should all students and faculty be associated with one college and one department? Also, how does interdisciplinary work happen in Oxford?
Yeah, so no. So firstly, answering your question of whether students and faculty should be from the same college. Like I said, right, college is a very personal choice. So my supervisor was in Corpus Christi, I was at Churchill, others were at random places. So at Oxbridge, you will choose a college based on where you want to live, what scholarships they are willing to offer for you, what are the different extracurricular platforms they have for you. So colleges, especially undergraduates, they will look at whether they have sporting activities, whether they have sports fields, and so on and so forth, whether they have musical choirs and bands and so on. So, you can be a part of, so essentially underlying factor in the social life decide every either college base so socially active extracurricular activities involved base decision. Whereas a research oriented decision that will come down to the scholarships that they are offering as well. Other extra added point. And it also is applicable to undergraduates and masters. Some of the colleges will offer some kind of scholarship. So the first option you will be considered for the scholarship. So ingeneയുള്ള different factors and variables നോക്കിയിട്ടാണ് നിങ്ങൾ ഏത് college ആണ് choose ചെയ്യുന്നത്. പിന്നെ ഇതൊന്നും ബാധകമല്ലെങ്കിൽ you can also think about, I have this dream of studying in this college which came up in that Steven Spielberg movie or something like Stephen Hawking's movie or something like that, right? I know people actually do such kind of things. I saw that and I thought I want to study there because it looked pretty fascinating and beautiful to me. So for random reasons also people choose certain colleges. Kind of 31 to 32 colleges and everything looks uniquely different. So you can also think about, if you have the luxury to make that decision based on what ambience you want to be surrounded by, that's also another factor to consider.
Yeah. So I think we can wind up now. Questions are there, but most of them are about scholarships and admission procedures. I think you can share your LinkedIn profile or email ID.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So, you should just be able to find me from Nikita Hari. If you just, I think nikitahari.in for LinkedIn, it should pretty come up easily. Dr. Nikita Hari is my, I have already posted my email. I can just do that once again. So yeah, this is my LinkedIn and this is my email. Happy to answer your questions offline. And for scholarships and the admission process to specific courses, like I said, please go through the website. They have specific information for specific courses. So 300 or 600 plus courses are there and so on. So fundamentally, the research application will be similar to what I said, but it can also differ according to certain professors and departments and funding timelines. So please ensure that you read and investigate and explore and research and make that informed decision.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nikita, for joining us for such an informative session. And thank you all the participants, Zoom-lullavarum, FB Live-lullavarum, for staying here. And thank you for joining. So I think we can wind up the session. So future, like if you want to communicate with Nikita or contact, you can just leave a message. Like LinkedIn profile, we'll share that. So thank you so much. And
yeah, thank you once again. Thank you very much, Neeraja, Murali, Arun, and Shruti for having me. And thank you for being a very patient, wonderful, and engaging audience. So I wish you all great luck in engineering, wonderful careers, and keep safe and keep well. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.